Ladies and gentlemen, the following segment of the podcast is presented exclusively by the Heritage Foundation. For 52 years, Heritage has fought tirelessly for America's founding principles and advancing conservative public policies. Much more than a think tank, Heritage is a conservative policy powerhouse, fighting for the everyday American to advance common sense policies and dismantle the D.C. bureaucracy. Our founding fathers gave us an extraordinary system of government, and the Heritage Foundation is dedicated to defending the heritage and carrying on their legacy for future generations. So get involved by completing their national survey on President Trump's agenda by visiting heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/Levin. Paid for by the Great Heritage Foundation.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mike Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811. 877-381-3811. The Obama appointee judge on the D.C. Circuit was loud, obnoxious, interrupting. She's very, very upset that the Trump administration wants to send the Venezuelan gang members back. She says, without due process. I'm going to get into this. You're going to hear what she did in part. It's really quite pathetic what's going on here. I mean, honest to God, they're here illegally. What's the due process? Not only are they here illegally, but let's say they were caught at the border. There would be no process whatsoever. They would be caught and returned almost immediately. So these judges are bending over backwards to create due process. They know that the American people like that phrase. And also to talk about free speech, the First Amendment. When it comes to Khalil, they know the American people like that phrase. But we're talking about people who are here illegally. They're here illegally. As they say, more into that later. Also, The Atlantic, which is a fairly radical left website. I don't even know if they have a magazine anymore. It's run by this guy. I think his name's Jeffrey Goldberg. His name is irrelevant, actually. But he writes today that he was accidentally, I suppose, put on a security chain. Texts with top administration officials about their military plans to hit the Houthis, which, of course, we have and are. Among other things, it shows J.D. Vance wants to wait 3 weeks because the Europeans have more at stake than we do. I don't know what's going on with this kind of thinking. The Europeans have more than we do with respect to the Houthis. Haven't they shot like 60 times at American military ships, Mr. Producer? As well as our commercial ships. I don't... The Europeans have more to lose. I mean, this is an enemy. They're shooting at our ships in international navigable waters. Anyway, that aside, how can it be an accident? Now, maybe it is. Maybe it was an error. But how does this guy wind up on a text chain, according to reports? You know, with the vice president, the secretary of defense, the secretary of state, the national security advisor, and a handful of others. How is that possible? Unless this report is not accurate. That this clown, this moron, this guy Goldberg, is on the text chain. They said, we're going to investigate. You know, it's obviously a national security issue, which it is. But the question is, was it a mistake or was it a leak? I guess we'll find out. You know, there's people who don't want us to attack the Houthis. I find these people who talk this way, they remind me of the defund movement in the United States, where they don't want our police to push back against the criminals, where they want the source prosecutors to let the criminals out on the streets. We have enemies overseas with big weapons. Big weapons. And what are we supposed to do? Wait until they attack us at Pearl Harbor again? I mean, I don't understand. You read the early founders. You know, people cite Washington's farewell address. Hey, see that? See that? You got to actually read Washington's farewell address rather than be handed 2 paragraphs from it. He was assisted in his views in that and writing it by Hamilton and Jefferson and a few others. So it's really worth looking at. He was arguing, we really can't take the side of Britain or France. We don't have a military strong enough. You know, we're a brand new country. And we got to find our legs, basically, he's saying. We got to find our legs first. So we should avoid entanglements, foreign entanglements. But he argued, Jefferson argued, more than Adams, we don't have to sit around and wait to be attacked. Jefferson, who set our Navy to destroy the pirates off Somalia. They were taking our commercial ships, much like the Houthis attacking our commercial ships, but they were taking our commercial ships, and they were enslaving the sailors. There you actually had black Somalis enslaving white Americans, just for those who keep track of race out there. But in any event, that's what they were doing. Adams was trying to negotiate. He wasn't getting anywhere. He didn't want to send the Navy. Jefferson did. And he crushed the pirates. Crushed them. But he also said, and he's not the only one, what are we supposed to do? Wait till we're attacked? If we see on the horizon people are preparing to attack us? No, I don't think so. We have an Obama-appointed judge who's a radical, hardcore lefty. I notice in her bio she's argued more cases than any other woman in front of the Supreme Court. Did she ever argue a case on gender, that women aren't women and men aren't men, or in front of the Associate Attorney General, Jackson, who wouldn't define a woman? I'm just curious. Again, I will always point this out, the schizophrenia, the hypocrisy, the first woman this and the first woman that when it comes to liberals and Democrats and radical causes. And then when you point out, I thought we're not supposed to identify by gender. They're so moronic, it's not even funny. But we have this judge, and there's several of these on the circuit court, because what Obama and Harry Reid did is they expanded the circuit court, the appellate court in Washington, D.C., by several seats. And the Democrats put in some of the biggest kooks imaginable, probably her. She's probably one of them. This court, this 3-judge panel, has her, an Obama appointee, Henderson, a judge who was appointed by George H.W. Bush, and then another judge who was appointed by Trump. Considering the Democrat radical kooks outnumber the Republicans, it's a pretty good draw, 2-1. I hope it's 2-1. We'll see what the Bush judge does anyway. But I want you to hear some of this back and forth. I think we're going to wait because I don't want to rush it. We're going to take a little break, and then I want to play it for you. But again, I want you to keep some context here, which is if these people were stopped at the border, they would have been arrested and imprisoned right there or returned immediately. We have a district court judge who doesn't even follow the own procedures in that court, even though he's the chief district court judge in that district, which is put your orders in writing, especially when you're dealing with the bureaucracy, so it can be copied and several copies can be made and handed out to the relevant people. He's looking to hold the Trump administration in contempt. I can tell by the way he's conducting himself. He's a complete loose cannon. They'll tell you he was appointed by Reagan to an earlier position, or Bush, I guess it is, not Reagan. Bush. I've explained how those deals are made. He's not a Bush judge, even though he was appointed by Bush, any more than the senior status federal district judge in Seattle is a Reagan judge, even though he was appointed by Reagan. These are radicals, extreme radicals. And the truth is, on first principles, regardless of how these Venezuelan gang members were deported or on what basis they are, it's none of the judge's damn business. The administration said this is a national security and foreign policy issue, which it clearly is. This is an international criminal enterprise. That's what it is. And these judges just don't care. They don't care about our security. They claim to be defending the Constitution. They don't even believe in the Constitution. The more radical they are, the more they reject the Constitution. They believe in their own personal little Constitution. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Listen, folks, if you're like me, you're passionate about protecting our American values. That's why I trust the Heritage Foundation. They're dedicated to promoting policies based on free enterprise, limited government, and traditional American values. The Heritage Foundation does more than just produce policy recommendations. They're mobilizing conservatives across the country. And right now, they need you to take action by completing their national survey on President Trump's agenda. Your responses to this survey will help guide Heritage leadership as they work closely with folks in Washington to promote your values, secure America's borders, and restore our freedoms. Here's what I want you to do. Visit heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin to complete your survey. It's very, very important. My friends at Heritage need you to act now to help them maximize the impact on President Trump's first 100 days. Heritage is committed to preserving our Founding Fathers' principles and ensuring that America remains a beacon of freedom and opportunity. So I know you won't sit on the sidelines. You'll get involved, please, today, and make your voice heard. Visit heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/Levin. Please complete your survey today. That's heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Great Heritage Foundation. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you're about to hear a judge by the name of Judge Millett, a radical leftist appointed by Obama 11, 12 years ago. The Deputy Assistant Attorney General arguing the case, his name is Drew Ensign. Cut 24, go.
Am I wrong about anything I just said, factually?
Your Honor, I think it's incorrect that they couldn't have gone into court as the 5 individual plaintiffs.
No, but the point here was that there were plane loads of people. I mean, it's a class action. There were plane loads of people. There were no procedures in place to notify people. Nazis got better.
Stop. So they should give a heads up to the gang members. What would happen to the gang members, Mr. Producer, if they gave them a heads up? Anybody with common sense out there, tell me, they would disappear. Now, this is an egghead. This is a moron. To notify people. We're notifying you that we're picking you up in 2 hours. We're notifying you we're picking you up tomorrow. Is this serious? This is why judges are not fit by experience to do these jobs. She's a lawyer. She's been a judge for a while. She's got a couple of law clerks. That's it. Let's start from the top again. Go.
Am I wrong about anything I just said factually?
Your Honor, I think it's incorrect that they couldn't have gone into court as the 5 individual plaintiffs.
No, but the point here was that there were plane loads of people. I mean, it was also
the point here, Judge, is you can't give them notice. Like this is some contract case. Or they disappear. Got it? No, I don't think she does. Go ahead.
Plane loads of people. There were no procedures in place to notify people. Nazis got better treatment under the Alien Enemy Act than has happened here. Where
really? They got better treatment, Nazis? Maybe she's not aware of the Kieran case in the 1940s. There's a handful of Nazis who came ashore. I believe it was off New Jersey. I'm doing it off the top of my head. I believe there were 8 of them, if I remember. 5 or 6 of them were executed at the direction of Franklin Roosevelt to his Attorney General. Now, how much due process do you get in a month? Because they were executed in a month, give or take. I don't think you get a lot, do you? This judge is a fool. Absolute fool. Go ahead.
Require the promulgation of regulations, and they had hearing boards before people were removed. And yet here there's nothing in there about hearing boards. There's no regulations, and nothing was adopted by.
What is she talking about? Is this during World War II or post World War II? When we were gathering up Nazis who were in the United States. It's funny how she went and researched this, and her assistant did. We're talking about individuals here who've already committed horrific crimes against American citizens, or in their home country, or in other countries. They've come into this country to do the same, and many of them have done the same. So I'm not even clear on what this analogy is. And this is the problem, America. These judges are not really talking the law and the Constitution. These judges are playing semantics. Some of them are almost hysterical in the language that they use, comparing this to the Nazis. It's crazy. Go ahead.
That were administering this. People weren't given notice. They weren't told where they were going. And they were given, those people on those planes on that Saturday had no opportunity to file habeas or any type of action.
I wish this lawyer who was arguing the case would have explained why they were gathered up and sent on the plane. I wish he would have explained if they had been stopped at the border, they would have immediately been returned. You know, Biden had stop and release. Trump had stop and return. Also, suppose the lawyer could have referenced Dwight Eisenhower. I don't know, did the 1 million people that he sent back, did they all have due process to, quote unquote, due process? Can you imagine? We have millions and millions of illegal aliens. She knows this. If you put them through the normal due process, they will never leave. All the resources of the Department of Justice, the Department of Homeland Security, will be used in trying these cases. You would need literally tens of thousands of new administrative judges. And the reason we have administrative judges is because we don't want to fill up the federal courts with immigration cases, or that's all they'll hear. There's a whole system that's been set up to deal with immigration. It's not the same as, oh, they're citizens, due process rights. No, they're due process rights, and there's due process rights. And decisions have been made by Congress and prior courts, and she's all washed up. I'm not done with her. We'll be right back. Folks, I need to talk to you about something crucial to the future of America. Our friends at the Heritage Foundation are on the front lines fighting for our conservative values. Heritage is dedicated to promoting policies that will help bolster our economy, protect our borders, and uphold the rule of law. They're working tirelessly to defend our Constitution and the principles that make America exceptional. To help accomplish this, they need you to complete their national survey on President Trump's agenda today. So you can participate in this survey by going to heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/Levin. Your responses are crucial to this survey, and they'll provide Heritage leadership with crucial feedback as they work closely with the folks in Washington to promote your values, secure America's borders, and restore our freedoms. By completing this very important survey today, you're standing up for the values that have made this country great. And my friends at Heritage need you to act now to maximize their impact on President Trump's first 100 days. So please don't wait. Our future depends on you. Together, we can make a difference, and future generations inherit a nation that is free, prosperous, and strong. So please, right now, visit heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin, complete your survey, and join the fight for America's future. That's heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Great Heritage Foundation.
Mark Levin on the front line of liberty. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
We're going to get back to that judge in a moment. This is Reuters. About a week ago, a Pentagon spokesperson said the Houthis have attacked U.S. warships 174 times and commercial vessels 145 times since 2023. Folks, that's 319 acts of war. That's why President Trump ordered military operations against the Houthis. They attacked us over and over and over again, unprovoked. For the Hate America First appeasers, why are you on the side of the enemy? Why do you speak like the enemy? Why do you think like the enemy? What's that all about? Why do you give aid and comfort to the enemy? Because you are. You're giving aid and comfort to the enemy. So back to this outrageous circuit court judge appointed by Barack Milhouse Benito Obama. Let's pick it up where we left off. Go ahead, Mr. Producer.
Removal under the AEA, and you've agreed that 2 of those airplanes, people were removed under the AEA. What's factually wrong about what I said?
Well, Your Honor, we certainly dispute the Nazi analogy, but more importantly, the fact is that individual plaintiffs were able to file habeas in time in order to secure relief.
Wait, what individual plaintiffs?
All right, so hold on. Habeas means that they can go to court on their own and accuse the government of imprisoning them or removing their freedom without the benefit of due process. I don't even like that argument, but that's all right. Go ahead.
Individual plaintiffs
That's not my question. My question is there were a lot more people. They wanted to bring a class action. They had to have some named plaintiffs.
Excuse me. They wanted to bring a class action. Okay, government, sit on your ass and wait, because the Venezuelan gang members hired a bunch of lawyers like her, and they wanted to bring a class action. You didn't give them notice. You didn't give them time to go to court and defend themselves. Don't you understand, Judge? I know you do. You're an egghead, but you're a radical kook. The government's argument, that is the Trump administration's argument, is you have no role here. This is a foreign policy, national security issue. You're a judge. You live in a cloistered conference room all day with 2 or 3 recent law school graduates as your clerks. So they're supposed to wait for these people to lawyer up with the worst kinds of lawyers imaginable, who do this for a living, defend terrorists and mass murderers, to go into court in front of a judge like you at the district court level. Your Honor, we're planning on moving these 200 people. Oh, wait, they want to bring a class action lawsuit. Do you see what I'm saying, Rich? How stupid this is? So the Trump administration said, excuse me, this is a national security issue. These people aren't supposed to be here. They're part of an international crime syndicate. They were sent here purposely. They're committing acts of crime. They're digging in. They're secreting themselves into our society. We're going to get rid of them. No. This is a domestic dispute. And so they wanted to bring a class action suit. Meaning a couple of hack lawyers wanted to represent all of them as a class. Yeah, class of gang members. No. Can you imagine the precedent this sets? I hope Supreme Court justices are listening to me and paying attention. Can you imagine if all of this has to go through a federal court every single time? There's millions and millions of illegal aliens here. Well, a lawyer wants to bring a class. Oh, excuse me. Well, we'll step back so they can bring a class action suit. See, I think when he brought up habeas, he gave too much. That's just me. What do I know? What do I know? Go ahead.
Filing habeas doesn't help everybody else on 2 airplane loads.
See it? Even if one person brings a habeas, gets in front of a judge in time, and says, hey, they're denying me my rights, and I don't have due process. Now she's arguing, but what about all the rest on the plane? Even if one or a handful bring habeas complaints to a judge, all the others are sent away. What about them? Well, what about them? Is this understandable, Mr. Producer, how I'm explaining this? How crazy-ass this is? Go ahead.
Correct? And my question to you is, and you said those 5 didn't get put on the airplanes. So as to the 2 airplanes that I think you just agreed involved removals solely on AEA grounds, on Saturday, the very short time of the proclamation's publication, had no opportunity to file for habeas or even notice as to the grounds on which
so she's saying 5 of them got an opportunity, but what about all the rest? They didn't get notice. They didn't get notice. He just took them away. And they also, sort of a parallel argument, they didn't have time to go in court and make a habeas claim. That's the point. They needed to round them up. They needed to do it secretly. They needed to move them quickly. These are dangerous people. Let me go back to the judge. Did any of the lawyers for the Nazis file a class action suit? We want to represent people of the same class. We want to represent all the Nazis. No, they didn't. You know why? It would have been absurd. Sometimes I'm too old for it. I wish I were in the courtroom. You know that, Mr. Producer? So, Your Honor, let's go back to your Nazi analogy. How many of them had class action suits? I don't know. None. I can tell you none. It would not have been tolerated. And, Your Honor, if we'd given them notice, they would disappear. There's a national security issue. How would you suggest that we handle it? Now, a lot of times judges will be rude and they'll cut off the litigant. But so what? As long as you do so in a colorably rational and respectful way, you do it anyway. Oy, 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 Mr. Producer. What are the last few seconds of this? Go ahead.
Am I wrong about that?
I think so, Your Honor. The fact that 5 individual plaintiffs did file habeas and did get relief indicates that they could...
I don't think you're answering my question.
What she means by, you're not answering my question, what about all the others? 5? But she didn't let him finish, did she? No. It's like a talk show host who never shuts the hell up when the guests are on. You know what I mean, Mr. Producer? But when you're arguing these things, she didn't want to hear the answer, America. This is the nature. You got to hear some of these radical judges. They are doing everything they can to protect these Venezuelan murdering, raping, brutalizing gang members. Some people ask why. Why are they doing this? I'm going to tell you why. You ready? This is a battle. What's the war? What's the war? The war is to denude Donald Trump of presidential authorities that have been exercised by past presidents. So you take the cases as you can. If it means the release of hundreds of Venezuelan gang members back into the United States, so they can bring a class action suit, or a habeas petition, that's the price. That's the price you pay, meaning we the citizens. That's the price you pay for turning the Constitution inside out and trying to prevent Donald Trump from exercising his authority. That's their endgame. She doesn't give a damn what happens to these over 200 people. Tell me, how many of these federal radical left-wing Democrat-appointed judges gave a damn about 325,000 unaccompanied minors who are missing? How many of these radical left-wing Democrat judges give a damn about God knows how many untold numbers of women sold into sex slavery when the border was wide open? They talk a lot from the bench, whether it's oral argument or whether they're sentencing people or even in their writings and so forth. I don't remember not one, raising issues about what's happening to these people as a result of an open border, which, of course, violated numerous immigration statutes and provisions. I don't remember any of them. So they don't give a damn about people. They could care less about people. Or they'd be like us, secure the border, follow the law, arrest the bad guys, put them in jail, get these foreign gang members who are part of an international criminal enterprise, get them out of the country. They wouldn't be doing what they're doing. Phony analogies with Nazis. Oh, but they wanted to bring a class action. So what if they want to bring a class action? They didn't have the opportunity. No, they didn't have the opportunity. Well, 5 of them brought habeas petitions, but the others couldn't because they didn't have notice. That's exactly right. We needed to get them out of here. Crazy. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Listen, folks, if you're like me, you're passionate about protecting our American values. That's why I trust the Heritage Foundation. They're dedicated to promoting policies based on free enterprise, limited government, and traditional American values. The Heritage Foundation does more than just produce policy recommendations. They're mobilizing conservatives across the country. And right now, they need you to take action by completing their national survey on President Trump's agenda. Your responses to this survey will help guide Heritage leadership as they work closely with folks in Washington to promote your values, secure America's borders, and restore our freedoms. Here's what I want you to do. Visit heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/LEVIN to complete your survey. It's very, very important. My friends at Heritage need you to act now to help them maximize the impact on President Trump's first 100 days. Heritage is committed to preserving our founding fathers' principles and ensuring that America remains a beacon of freedom and opportunity. So I know you won't sit on the sidelines. You'll get involved, please, today, and make your voice heard. Visit heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Please complete your survey today. That's heritage.org/LEVIN, paid for by the Great Heritage Foundation. People talk about these wars, these forever wars. Can we win these wars? I don't think we can win wars anymore if we have judges like this. I'll tell you that right now. I really believe that. These people are nuts. It's interesting. I mentioned I'm going back and forth between the Houthi situation and, of course, this judge and what they're trying to do on immigration, more specifically deporting criminals. And I'd mentioned these hate America first types, these isolationists who blame us, who say we're the ones who are motivating people to attack us. I just pointed out they fired on 319 of our ships. 174 military, 145 commercial. Each one of those is an act of war. For instance, if somebody in this country went out there and said, you know what, I'm going to blow up a freighter, or I'm going to blow up an American naval ship, do you think we'd turn the other cheek, Mr. Producer? No, I don't think we would. How about if they do it 319 times? I don't think so, America. And I had alluded to George Soros. It's like their attitude is foreign policy, the George Soros of foreign policy. That's what they are. That's what the isolationists are. They sound like him on foreign policy. They take the position of the enemy. They cavort with the enemy. They talk up the enemy. They attack anybody in the United States who speaks up for America, who speaks up for the men and women in the military and the United States military generally. They call people who support our military and believe that we should not be subject to target practice by terrorist groups, warmongers. And they use the canard neocons because they'd rather not say the Jews. The Jews aren't behind this. The neocons aren't behind this. Warmongers aren't behind this. It's called self-defense. They don't even believe we should have self-defense. And they don't believe if Iran gets a nuclear missile that that's a problem, that we should wait till they fire it, I guess. But I've been thinking about this. It is George Soros and Charles Koch, the Quincy Institute, and this other little crap foundation that they created, where they create these sort of brainwashed, feeble, ridiculous people who go out there and defend the enemy. George Soros funds groups that oppose democracy, funds groups that believe in the destruction of the state of Israel in the Middle East. George Soros brought the British economy to its knees. George Soros backs the release of violent criminals on our own streets, and he does the same overseas. George Soros and Charles Koch, that's their Quincy Institute and groups like that, I would argue. And then they call the foreign policy, it's realist. What's realist? It's a realistic foreign policy. No, it's not. It's like the progressives calling themselves progressives. No, they're Marxists. They're not progressives. So they attack our ships 319 times, like Jefferson when the pirates attacked our ships. Finally, he stepped in when he became president. Adams wouldn't, and he put an end to it. What Trump is doing is Jeffersonian. What Trump is doing is Reaganism, peace through strength. What's the alternative, America? What's the alternative? So these voices are giving aid and comfort to the enemy. They're giving aid and comfort to the enemy in Iran. They're giving aid and comfort to the Houthis. They're giving aid and comfort to Hamas. I hear news reports today. Same thing. Spewing the Hamas health ministry's numbers. And they even give aid and comfort to Qatar. A terrorist regime plays both sides of the street, but gave aid and comfort to Hamas to the tune of $1.8 billion, gave them safe harbor, and I'm supposed to pretend it never happened. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. What is this? That's why the president put his foot down. That's why he's attacked the Houthis. That's why he's giving an ultimatum to Iran in a time certain. That's why, as Pete Hegseth said on my Fox show last night, it's unequivocal. The president's position down to the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of State, and National Security Advisor, they will not get a nuke. Well, why not? What's the problem? Doesn't mean they'll use it, you know. An Islamic, fundamentalist, murderous, genocidal regime. And so we're just supposed to hope it doesn't happen. Now we have judges who want to allow Venezuelan gang members, give them notice, like nothing's going to happen. They're going to be in our streets. So honestly, ladies and gentlemen, the George Soros policies and mindset, they exist throughout our judiciary. They exist throughout morons with microphones and TV cameras in their face. George Soros has a lot of influence, apparently, on knuckleheads of every of every party. This hour's up already, Mr. Producer? What the hell? I shall return. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. We will have our good friend, Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin, on the program in hour 3 to discuss this all-important race for the Supreme Court of Wisconsin. You might say, excuse me, I'm from Illinois. I'm from New Jersey. I'm from Iowa. What the hell does that have to do with me? Everything. We could literally lose maybe 2 or worse seats in the House of Representatives because the Democrats, you know, when they get power, they try and fix the results. So what they're going to try and do is redistrict these 2 Republicans out of existence. Now, you might recall something happened that I never heard of before this one time, this one round. When the Census Bureau at the Department of Commerce was looking at the population and making its determinations and so forth and so on, which the states use to make determinations, they cost us like 3 or 4 congressional seats, maybe up to 6, Mr. Producer. Do you remember that? Ladies and gentlemen, the populations of these blue states these states are actually depopulating. People are leaving to go to red states. Those people aren't stupid. I mean, some are on the left, but you understand the point. It turns out they made a mathematical error, quote unquote. So some of the blue states were wrongly assigned a larger population than some of the red states. Like Florida lost 2 seats. I don't mean they were taken. They should have had 2 more seats, but they didn't get them. I think another state, maybe it was Tennessee, but I don't remember. They had a right to another seat. I think Texas lost 1 or 2 seats. That is, the Democrat states kept those seats, and they should have been in these Republican states. An error? I find that hard to believe, don't you? Maybe this Howard Lutkin, is that his name? Whatever his name is, the Secretary of Commerce. Might want to look into that. I would encourage him to do so because that's pretty disgusting. That's pretty disgusting. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we have this judge, Boasberg in Washington, D.C. This is the judge who slapped the hand of the lawyer who manipulated the FISA court with his filing. He actually messed around with evidence. That's right. He messed around with an email that said the opposite after he was done of what it was. So rather than send him to jail or anything like that, he slapped him on the hands. You see what I mean? This is also a guy, we had our friend Julie Kelly on the program last week, who made very aggressive and truly outrageous comments about Donald Trump and his insurrection. Donald Trump wasn't charged with an insurrection, you moron judge. But it didn't matter. So he's a real left-wing bomb thrower. His daughter is too, runs in the family, and usually does. Pam Bondi is in the right place at the right time. The Attorney General of the United States. And she's on to this judge. She knows what he's doing. She knows what he is doing. And she said this on Sunday. Cut 4, go.
This is an out-of-control judge, a federal judge trying to control our entire foreign policy, and he cannot do it. You know, he dragged us into court on a Saturday without any notice, and then he's continuing these hearings. He's trying to ask us about national security information, which he is absolutely not entitled to. We are appealing. We will be in court Monday again. We will win. We will prevail. There are 261 reasons why Americans are safer today, and that's because those people are now in an El Salvador prison. And we are going to follow the law, and we are going to protect Americans. You know, there's a reason why Biden's approval rating was plummeting because of the border. There's a reason why the current Democrats' approval rating is at 29%. People want to be safe. This is President Trump's agenda to keep Americans safe, Maria. It's basic public safety. Get these people out of our country as fast as we can. They're not immigrants. They're illegal aliens who are committing the most violent crimes you can imagine on Americans. Murder, rapes. You know, ask the parents of all of these young women who have been violently strangled, raped, and murdered.
You don't understand. There were lawyers who wanted to bring a class action suit. You didn't give them notice. And, of course, they would have fled. Okay, so there was a hearing today in front of Judge Boasberg and Susie Moore over at Red State. She has this covered. She says here, this order itself is very brief, simply states the administrative motive. The court need not resolve the thorny question of whether the judiciary has the authority to assess this claim in the first place, said the government. It's because plaintiffs are likely to succeed on another equally fundamental theory. Actually, this is the judge. Sorry. Before they may be deported, they're entitled to individualized hearings to determine whether the act applies to them at all, as the government itself concedes. So the government... So they've been looking all weekend. He thinks he's got something. That under this law, you're right to an individualized hearing. The court gave the plaintiffs until Wednesday to request that the temporary restraining order be converted to a preliminary injunction. That's 2 days from now. If that occurs, we can expect the administration to appeal the injunction. It's a developing story, obviously. At some point, John Roberts is going to have to do something about this. He needs to take up one of these cases and put an end to this. These national TROs and injunctions, the interference. I guess my question to John Roberts and his ilk would be this. Where are we going to draw the line here for judicial review? Where are you going to draw the line? Can't just draw it at standing. That's ridiculous. Standing's about the lowest threshold imaginable. We're not talking about standing anyway. We're talking about, that is the court's rules. We're talking about separation of powers. So where are you going to draw this line? Now, John Roberts, the reason you keep getting these cases is because the left keeps pushing them. That's why. I would be more concerned, John Roberts, if I were you, about how my reputation will be seen 100 years from now if we lose this republic to this judicial tyranny, as opposed to how it will be seen in the immediate pages of the New York Times, the Washington Post, both of which probably won't exist by then, or any of these network or cable TV shows. That's the truth. Your legacy won't be determined next week or next year or 2 years from now. Your legacy will be determined, people looking back many years. So far, it's quite poor. The Obamacare decision was an outrageous overreach. And you know it because you changed your opinion to the very end. How do I know that? Because it was written like you're in third grade with all the errors and so forth. I called it right here when I started reading it on the air when it was released that evening. I said, wait a minute. Chief Justice switched sides. Remember that, Mr. Producer? I said, this isn't written. There's typos here. There's this. This was a last-minute battle. And he obviously switched sides, and then we read the leaks in the media where even Justice Anthony Kennedy went to him and said, John, what the hell are you doing here? 5-4 decision. John, what are you doing here? Conservative court, they say. Of course, the 4 justices were right who wanted to take it and nip this in the bud. So where do we draw the line here? Judges can order presidents to spend money they don't want to spend on foreign policy projects that the prior president was pushing out the window as fast as he could. Is that okay? Judges can order the government what to put back on their websites. Is that okay? Judges can deny the President of the United States and his immediate staff the right to look at information that the executive branch has so they can determine whether there's fraud taking place, whether it's Social Security being defrauded or the Treasury Department having misplaced payroll checks and other payments. Now, you can't look at that. You're on a fishing expedition. Now, that's funny. Can't get rid of a policy that was put in place by the prior administration, DEI, according to a judge who spent his career litigating DEI, living in DEI, and was probably a DEI appointee, which should not bother the supporters of DEI. What are you saying by that, Mark? I don't know. Why is it controversial if I say somebody's a DEI appointee? We're told it's great. We're told it's necessary. And then when you say that guy's a DEI appointee because he or she might be, it's, what, he racist? What are you talking about? You don't even know if I'm talking about race. May not have anything to do with race. May have to do with sex. Or what you do with your genitalia. Or God knows, 1,000 other things. The point is this. You can't praise it out of one side of your mouth and then accuse people who say, you know what, you used that to get that job or somebody, and then denounce people in the worst kind of way when they say you must be DI appointee. I pointed this out a year or two ago anyway, but that's the point. We'll see what happens here. These 2 Republican appellate judges need to step up. It sounded like the Trump appellate one today was standing up. But he did bring up some interesting issues. You understand the counsel in this case is led, the prime principal counsel is the American Criminal Liberties Union, the ACLU. Did you know that, Mr. Producer? That's the lead counsel. Of course. Breitbart covered this as well. The judge says that the plaintiffs are likely to succeed, meaning the ACLU is likely to defeat the good guys. And Trump and his deputies are pushing hard to prevent the courts from blocking what he's trying to do. I mean, we're talking about 9 million illegal aliens who are brought into the country. And these judges obviously don't want them to be relieved. To be deported. And so this is just the beginning. This judge is very conflicted. His daughter made millions of dollars representing Biden, Harris, so forth. And of course, that's true. But anyway, we'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
This country was founded on freedom. Freedom from a country that forced us to buy overpriced tea, then tried blockading us when we dumped their tea into the ocean. How'd that work out? Well, it's time to throw your overpriced big wireless contract overboard, too. You don't need to pay $100 a month per person just to get a free phone. Pure Talk, my cell phone company, says no to inflated prices and gimmicks. With a qualifying plan of just $45 a month, you can choose a free iPhone 14 or a free Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plans. And yes, this is for premium service. Unlimited talk, text, 25 gigs of data, and mobile hotspot at a fraction of the price of the big 3. All on America's most dependable 5G network. Get your free iPhone 14 or Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plans by visiting puretalk.com/Levin today. Switching is easy. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN to claim your free iPhone or Galaxy with a qualifying purchase from Pure Talk. America's wireless company, my wireless company. Here we have from our friends at Breitbart. You know, it is one of the great sites, I got to say. Breitbart is a terrific site. Blaze News, very proud of them. The Daily Wire, the Daily Caller, the Right Scoop. There are many others. And so by my not mentioning them, I certainly don't mean to leave them out, but I want to thank all the people associated with these various sites for all your hard work, for what you do, because they're very, very important. They are. Getting the truth out. And they're also damn patriotic, which is also important. The Speaker of the House, who I think is a wonderful person, 62% of federal injunctions in the last century. In the last century. Against presidents have been handed down against President Trump. 62% of all federal injunctions against presidents in the last century have been handed down against Donald Trump. You got that, Supreme Court? You think there's something going on here? Oh, I know what they'll say. Well, it's because of Donald Trump or what Donald Trump? No, it's not. It's nothing to do with Donald Trump. This was all planned even before the results of the election were known. 92% of those 62% were handed down by Democrat-appointed judges. Now, you've got to be deaf, dumb, and blind. And let's hope that John Roberts isn't all three to not see this. Jeff Poore, during this week's broadcast on Fox News Sunday Night in America, House Speaker Mike Johnson noted a high ratio of federal judge-issued injunctions against the Trump administration compared to other presidential administrations over the past 100 years. A whopping 62% of federal injunctions issued over the last century were against Trump, with 92% of those coming from Democrat-appointed judges. Think about that. Stunning, isn't it? But they don't care. In fact, as I played in the opening on Sunday, Chuck Schumer was proud that he put, quote-unquote, progressives on the court. 235 of them, he said, in order to deal with Trump. 235 of them. Now, I hope these judges understand, not that they care, they're there for life, so they can do pretty much anything they want. You know, as long as they don't, do prurient things or embezzle funds or stuff like that, which is a pretty low standard, I would say. We're going to have Jim Jordan on the program tomorrow night. What time, Rich, is it? Do you know? In our second hour, right about now. Actually, tomorrow night, we're going to talk about options and what they're thinking about, and he's going to hold a hearing on this, which is very, very important. And so that'll be done, and it needs to be done. I'm worried about the Senate. You know, for instance, this bill that was passed in the House by the slimmest of margins, it goes to the Senate, passes there, this budget bill. Do you know that the Senate will not meet the House bill and approve it? I mean, do the senators understand over there, the Republicans in particular? And I haven't talked to the Speaker about this. I haven't talked to anybody about it. I just read about it. That he has nowhere to go. He's got no room to operate. What was it, by 1 or 2 votes, Rich? Something like that. That they got it passed in the House. He's got nowhere to go. So the Senate has to give something. I mean, seriously? And when he was on my show on Fox last week, The speaker said they want to get this done by May. And I read in the article, as a result of this impasse with the Senate, it may not happen till July at the earliest. You got to get Trump's program in place. And so I don't know what these senators are thinking, to be perfectly honest, or the Senate leadership over there. You got to get it done. I'll be right back. This country was founded on freedom. Freedom from a country that forced us to buy overpriced tea, then try blockading us when we dumped their tea into the ocean. How'd that work out? Well, it's time to throw your overpriced big wireless contract overboard, too. You don't need to pay $100 a month per person just to get a free phone. Pure Talk, my cell phone company, says no to inflated prices and gimmicks. With a qualifying plan of just $45 a month, you can choose a free iPhone 14 or a free Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plans. And yes, this is for a premium service. Unlimited talk, text, 25 gigs of data, and mobile hotspot at a fraction of the price of the big three. All on America's most dependable 5G network. Get your free iPhone 14 or Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plans by visiting puretalk.com/Levin today. Switching is easy. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN to claim your free iPhone or Galaxy with a qualifying purchase from Pure Talk. America's wireless company, my wireless company.
If Mark has banned you from the show, we have a special number you can call to reach him, 877-381-3811.
I think Jamie Raskin is one of the most evil little bastards out there in politics. We've given up on trying to get him on any of my platforms. He will not come on. None of them will. We asked AOC, no. Bernie Sanders, no. Anyway, as I told you last week, honestly, I don't blame them. I mopped the floor with them. Don't you think, Mr. Producer? It would be fun. But it's not happening. So Jamie Raskin goes where he's comfortable. Fellow radical kooks over at MSLSD or the Constipated News Network or what have you. So here he is spewing his stupidity. Cut two, go.
We got 125 cases that have been filed across the country and 50 federal
Actually, it's 129, but who's counting? Go ahead.
Temporary restraining orders or preliminary injunctions.
No, stop. He just said 50 of them have issued temporary restraining orders or injunctions. 50 from his numbers out of 125. Because there's form shopping. Because this is an inside game. And you hear this moron on Meet the Depressed. I always forget her name because I want it out of my head. She's just nodding. Mm-hmm. Tell him, Jamie. Tell him. Tell him, Jamie. You can do this. Go ahead.
Against Trump. So let's start with the positive news that the courts are working. They're doing their job. That's why.
No, the courts are not doing their job. They're doing a job. And they're doing a job on the country and the Constitution. And Chuck Schumer already said what's taking place. And for this hostess, for not the mostess, over there at Meet the Depressed, to not point that out is, of course, her own form of censorship. Go ahead.
About impeaching all these federal judges. That's why they're attacking.
Hey, moron, he didn't say impeach all these federal judges. He was talking about Bozoberg. And this is a guy that was behind both of Trump's impeachments. He's already said if they take the House, he'll be behind a third Trump impeachment. Just look at these tyrants. Just look at these thugs. He's a Stalinist. He knows he's a Stalinist. I know he's a Stalinist, which is why when he sees me, imagines seeing me, he runs. That's why he won't deal with me. He won't confront me with his genius. So he goes on Meet the Depressed. This is why the network Sunday shows are dead. They're dead. They don't get many viewers anymore. They used to get 10 million, 15 million. Now it's a couple million maybe on a good day. Lightweights all around. All right, let's go to cut three, Mr. Producer. Cut three. Go ahead.
And so we've got to play these cases out. Trump administration has just thrown caution to the winds. I mean, the great example of this, of course, is the birthright citizenship executive order. The first sentence of the 14th Amendment says all persons born or naturalized in the United States. And
so you see how they lie? This is what they do. This is what they do. This is what they do in tyrannies and totalitarian regimes, whether they be Marxists or fascists or anything of the kind. We all know what that sentence says. We can all read. I've talked to you folks about it before. As a matter of fact, I think it was this host, when she read it some months ago, left out part of it purposely. But the debate is over what the language means and who wrote the language and what it meant originally. I am concerned that so many people have benefited, quote unquote, from birthright citizenship that there won't be a majority on the Supreme Court that has the guts to do what it ought to do if it really was upholding the Constitution. But that said, this clown is a propagandist. This clown is a demagogue. This clown is a Stalinist, just like his daddy was. That's right, Jamie. I know all about you guys. That's why you won't come on my shows, because I confront your little ass with it. Go ahead.
Thereof are citizens of the United States. It is just as plain as day. And we have Obama judges, Biden judges, Reagan judges, Trump judges.
No, we don't have Reagan judges. Maybe one or two. Like a Lamberth or something. But the guy in Seattle was, as I've said over and over, was appointed by Reagan, but he's not a Reagan judge. This guy, Boozberg or Bozoberg, or whatever his name is, lower court appointment, I think within the District of Columbia court system by George W. Bush. Again, that was part of a deal. So the host doesn't do her homework, or she's too dumb to know. Raskin knows he's a serial liar. He's a pathetic liar. And that's why he goes on these programs. That's why he does what he does. Now, I hope that Elon Musk's people, somebody, anybody, listens to this show or watches me on TV or whatever, because I told him what I think they need to do in terms of litigation strategy with these threats. You notice how they don't even talk about it that much on these Sunday shows? Have you noticed that? I mean, we have another guy. Some kind of bomb was left at another dealership. Did you see that, Mr. Producer? This is a Tesla dealer. It's nuts. And some pig with a mask on, big fat slob, pulls up behind a woman and warns her, this is on the road. You need to get rid of your car. You better get rid of that car. The hell? We have real thugs on the left. Real thugs. And they lecture you and me. Look what they did in 2020. Look what they're doing now. Look what they did in the 1960s. I could go on and on and on. But no, it's January 6th. That's the biggest day in American history. Look, I don't like what happened on January 6th, but I don't like what's going on every damn day with the Marxist Islamist Democrats. That's what I need to call them. The Marxist Islamist Democrats. Their militia are always out there. And they're always violent. I mean, attacking dealerships, attacking people driving these cars, burning them, firebombing, shooting. What the hell's going on here? Gun control. No, liberal control. That's what we need. Liberal control. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
This country was founded on freedom. Freedom from a country that forced us to buy overpriced tea, then try blockading us when we dumped their tea into the ocean. How'd that work out? Well, it's time to throw your overpriced big wireless contract overboard, too. You don't need to pay $100 a month per person just to get a free phone. Pure Talk, my cell phone company, says no to inflated prices and gimmicks. With a qualifying plan of just $45 a month, you can choose a free iPhone 14 or a free Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plans. And yes, this is for a premium service. Unlimited talk, text, 25 gigs of data, and mobile hotspot at a fraction of the price of the big three. all on America's most dependable 5G network. Get your free iPhone 14 or Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plans by visiting puretalk.com/Levin today. Switching is easy. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN to claim your free iPhone or Galaxy with a qualifying purchase from Pure Talk. America's wireless company, my wireless company. Anti-Israel journalist professor claims it's racist to call Hamas a terrorist group. You know, they really need to clean up this academia and these truly sick professors. And this is at Legal Insurrection, a great site over there. This is by Mike LaChance, anti-Israel journalism professor. Ooh, a journalism professor who's anti-Israel? Do tell. Claims it's racist to call Hamas a terrorist group. The reason that I don't like the word terrorist is it only gets applied to what Palestinians do. I've seen so many Palestinians who've experienced terror. Yeah. So you're not distinguishing between Hamas and Palestinians? It is racist to call Hamas a terrorist group. Now we're cutting to the chase, baby. It's racist to call a terrorist group a terrorist group. It's racist to call a terrorist group that brags about its terrorism a terrorist group, according to City University of New York professor Peter Beinart. Oh, this a-hole, who used to be, I think, the editor of the New Republic. This guy is a true head case. Peter Beinart. He teaches national reporting and opinion writing at the Newark, New Jersey School and Political Science at CUNY Graduate Center, according to his faculty bio. Beinart, a CNN commentator. Are you kidding me? CNN, do you have no standards left? None? Where's Oliver Darcy, that freak? Where is he? Is he on his own now? I guess so. Oliver, where are you when we need you? Where are you, young man? Old man, whatever the hell you are. Beinart, a CNN commentator, debated Jeffrey Lachs, a pro-Israel professor who's actively fighting against anti-Semitism within the City University system. What's there to debate? Lachs and Beinart debated the controversial Hunter College Palestinian Studies job. Mr. Producer, you think I could get that job? I think I should apply. Now, the pay's not good enough. That job opening that explicitly looked for an activist. I'm an activist, just not for the terrorists. You have to be a terrorist act? That sounds like complete discrimination to me. Wait a minute. Only people who support the terrorist activists are qualified for the job? Wow. Democratic Governor Kathy Hochul, for you others, ordered the posting taken down and is currently being revised, the College Fix recently reported. Yes, look, you can't be under the closet on this stuff. If you support terrorism, just say you support the liberation movement. Then we can take in. You get what I mean? Yes. Just take the Hamas health minister's numbers on how many Palestinians have been killed by the Jews and use that. That'll get you in. You understand. During the debates posted yesterday on X, Lachs asked Beinart if the two could agree that Hamas is a terrorist group. Beinart criticized Hamas for committing war crimes. Well, that was big of him. But said he did not want to use the term terrorist because it only applied to Palestinians. No, it applies to what we call terrorists, you little bastard. The reason that I don't like the word terrorist, it only gets applied to what Palestinians do. And I've seen so many Palestinians who've experienced terror, right? Why does the people always end sentences with right? Do you do that, Mr. Producer? Right? Good call, right? Right? Right. It's a great site by Professor William Jacobson. And he's really turned it into a wonderful site, as a matter of fact. So according to Peter Beinart, we don't call them terrorists because only Palestinians are called. And by the way, what about the Venezuelan gang members? We call them terrorists. Should we not call them terrorists either? And this is what the hard left do. I don't know if he's a Marxist or not. He's definitely not one of me or us. The language. They understand this. Change words, ban words, create new words, create new definitions for old words. And that's what they do. Now, why do they do that? It's called mind control, thought control, as I've written about in the past. Communication's everything. You don't have communication, you don't have a society. You don't have a society, you don't have a republic. So if you can't communicate the truth, what do you have? Tyranny. That's what you have. That Power Hour is next. Be right back.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mike Levin.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm putting something together here to send to Mr. Producer. Just do a quick spell check, Rich, if you would. It's for a posting, but I will tell you what I am posting, American. And this could be completely false, of course, because we know Politico is Politico. They've been on the government payroll before. But let me read this to you. Waltz's future in doubt following accidental war plan leak. Now, that's a headline that's intended to grab attention. And it's by Daisha Burns, Rachel Body, and Eli Stokels. The stunning revelation that top administration officials accidentally included a report in a group chat discussing war plans triggered furious discussion inside the White House. That National Security Advisor Mike Waltz may need to be forced out. Now, this could be disinformation. It could be by one of these, people embedded in the White House who are the enemy firsters. Waltz is a war hero. He's been fantastic as National Security Advisor. His public appearances have been incredible. He's been absolutely 100% loyal to the Commander-in-Chief. And he cares about the country first and foremost. He's put his life on the line. So now we have people going to one of the worst so-called media outlets, Politico, trying to get him taken down. And I suspect it's the isolationists or people of that ilk. Waltz is not an interventionist. Waltz does what the president wants him to do. Nothing is decided yet, they tell us, and White House officials caution that President Donald Trump would ultimately make the decision over the next day or two as he watches coverage of the embarrassing episode. So, of course, this is a message to the rest of the media to keep at it. A senior administration official told Politico on Monday afternoon that they are involved in multiple text threads with other administration staffers on what to do with Waltz. Okay, you see what's happening? It's not top down. There's a campaign going on internally. This would be very bad for the president if this keeps up. Half of them saying he's never going to survive or shouldn't survive, said the official, who, like others, was granted anonymity to discuss internal deliberations. If they ever find these people who leak to the media, they're the ones whose asses should be fired. And two high-level White House aides, whatever that means, have floated the idea that Waltz should resign in order to prevent the president from being put in a bad position. All right, I'm convinced this is the isolationist wing. This is the Charles Koch, George Soros wing. I'm not buddies with Mike Waltz. We've never socialized. We've never had a meal together. I don't think we've spent more than 20, 30, 40 minutes together. But I know a decent, upright, loyal, patriotic American when I see one. When I see one. Obviously, this was a mistake, or worse, by somebody, not Waltz, in terms of worse, be somebody else. This could be a complete setup. This is how these dark dagger events occur. This is how they occur. Who was on the text? Including Defense Secretary Hegseth, Vice President Vance, Director of Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, and others. Now that's interesting. A third person familiar with the fallout said Trump has spoken with Waltz about the matter, and the White House is for now standing by him. So there's a campaign now to take out Waltz. And I'm calling on the people in the administration, the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of State, the Vice President, the Director of National Intel, you speak up and in defense of Mike Waltz. Of Mike Waltz. See, this is a quote. Everyone in the White House can agree on one thing. Mike Waltz is an effing idiot. That's the quote. A person close to the White House said. So this is what we call the in and out game. You need to understand how this works. These individuals are trying to diminish Waltz. They like the fact that the press is involved. The press is giving them cover to diminish Waltz and to try and create a furor so Donald Trump does something, which then, of course, splashes onto Donald Trump. That's what's taking place here. So there's a cabal. They know who they are. I think I know who they are. In and out of the White House. Mike Waltz is an effing idiot, says somebody outside of the White House. That sounds like people I've heard before, doesn't it, you, Mr. Producer? Particularly if they're out to get his scalp, because, you know, they want to clear the way. They want to clear the field for the Soros and Koch appointees. And many of them are pushing these nut jobs on the Defense Department, State Department, and in the White House. That's my guess. But I have found him to be, again, I don't talk to him. I just don't. But it's not because I don't want to or don't like him. He's busy and I'm busy. I have found him to be superb when I watch him, listen to what he has to say. He executes the president's agenda. I mean, very, very well. President Trump said the attacks on the Houthis had been highly successful and effective. President Trump continues to have the utmost confidence in his national security team, including National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, White House Press Secretary Caroline Levin said today. A fourth White House official, she's the only one on the record, and she's supporting Waltz. All the ones attacking him are not on the record. The Quislings. Fourth White House official said they were aware of internal pressure for Waltz to own his mistake, which could mean a possible resignation. That official said what happens to Waltz largely depends on how Trump personally feels about the matter. And noted the involvement of the other administration officials in the signal chat as well. It just goes on and on and on. So this is a hit job. It's a hit job. No, something happened, don't get me wrong. That's not a hit job, but attacking him. Speaker Mike Johnson told Politico Waltz should absolutely not resign. He's exceptionally qualified for the job. He's trusted, trustworthy. He was made for the job. I have full confidence in him, and I second that. I stand with the Speaker. I stand with the Speaker. He is superb. You know, it's funny. The left-wing sites that pretend to be media sites that are really the entrails of the corporate media platforms, they're all leftists. If I were to come out and say something negative about a potential nominee or even raise a question, they try and create a story of disunity that's taking place. It's not disunity at all. But here I'm coming out full square for Mike Waltz. And it'll either be ignored altogether, or twisted somehow. But my words are my words. You hear them all. We have them on Mark Levin's show on our Rewind link. And they're all there for everybody to hear. My words are what they are. This guy, Mike Waltz, is a top-level, loyal, brilliant, military, national security advisor to our president, the commander-in-chief. He's a great communicator to the public, too. And I think it would be a bad mistake if he resigns, it'll only be because he's been asked to resign or he feels like there's too much controversy. But right now we're at the stage where they're trying to create controversy. They're trying to pressure the president. They're trying to create the conditions for him either to resign or to be fired. This happened so fast, this campaign. There's so many in on it. It's so well organized with Politico, which is where all the miscreants, malcontents, and the other a-holes go. Politico, that's the main one. That or Axios. That this is absolutely a campaign and a setup. They kind of gave it away because of the line in here that talks about, obviously, the president will make the decision. So obviously the president didn't make a decision. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You know, he doesn't know this. Senator Ron Johnson's one of my favorite senators. He ran as a citizen candidate. He's overcome a lot of hurdles from Republican leadership. He's won in a very tough state, 3 elections in a row. Senator Ron Johnson, it's always a pleasure to have you. It's been a while. I wanted to talk briefly with you about this all-important Supreme Court race in Wisconsin and why it matters to the country. Why is it important, Senator, and why does it matter to the country?
Well, first of all, Mark, thanks for those kind words. I have nothing but respect for all the work you've done. This race has national implications. First of all, we're deciding between a judge, Brad Schimel, who would actually apply the law, and a radical leftist who will be a judicial activist and will, legislate from the bench. That's the struggle going out, within our judicial system throughout the country. And the left views this as extremely important because if she gets elected, we'll retain a radical left majority on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. They already redistricted our state assembly and Senate races, narrowing our majorities. They didn't have time to redistrict our federal congressional seats. They'll do that next. We'll probably lose 2 congressional seats. We could lose the Republican majority. They would have no problem in rolling back, for example, Act 10, which would cost Wisconsin taxpayers millions, probably billions over time. But they'll roll back voter ID. I don't know whether you could ever hold a free and fair election in Wisconsin if this court remains in the hands of the radical leftists. They'll overturn voter ID. They will never be able to reform our system. For example, get control of our voter file. We've got the drop boxes. We have all kinds of voting problems in Wisconsin. We just haven't been able to fix them because we've always had a Democrat governor. And you combine that with a radical left Supreme Court, and Wisconsin may no longer be a battleground state. It just could turn, go the way of Minnesota, which would be tragic.
That would be tragic. These judges and justices Senator, just so completely out of control, and they don't care because they just figure, I really do think we have in this country now, I think we can say it's not going to happen. It is happening. This judicial despotism. You look at the President Trump, you look at the past century. The Speaker of the House looked at the numbers. He said 62% of all TROs and injunctions against presidents occurred against Trump. 92% of those were issued by Democrat-appointed judges. I mean, the figures don't lie, do they?
No, again, the left, the radical left, they don't revere the Constitution. They don't respect the very careful checks and balances our founders put into our system. They certainly, when they're on the court, they don't respect the constraints the Constitution places on judges. Again, I think it was Neil Gorsuch in his confirmation talked about the role of a judge or justice is to apply the law, not to alter it. That's not what radical left judges think. They want to alter it. They want to legislate from the bench because the left, their ideas are so obviously out of step with the American public. They can't pass their ideas, their ideology through legislative process. They can only impose them through executive action when they have the presidency or through the courts. And they have no problem using the courts that way.
Now, Soros has jumped in, of course, because he supports all this tyrannical activity. Elon Musk has jumped in to defend and support the Republican candidate. To your knowledge, how does it look on the ground there?
It's a close race. We are encouraging early voting, and you can do early voting till March 29th. I encourage you to do that. Bank your vote. In Wisconsin, on April Fool's Day, we could have a snowstorm. So we're encouraging that. Elon Musk, let's face it, he financed the ground game for President Trump, was hugely responsible for making sure that the analogy I use is Wisconsin was the golfer that sank the putt to win the President's Cup. We put President Trump over the top, but that's because people like Elon Musk, Charlie Kirk, the RPW, all of our wonderful volunteers focused on ground game. So we're doing that. The amount of money being spent on this race is grotesque. It's just grotesque. So one of the reasons I'm not a real fan of political consultants, they're the ones driving up the cost of these races. But the radical left came in and way outspent our previous Supreme Court justice candidate a couple of years ago, and we lost that one. Only got 800,000 votes for Dan Kelly. President Trump got 1.7 million votes. He's the record vote getter now in Wisconsin. Beat out Obama by about 20,000 votes. And I'm so grateful of Elon Musk supporting it, but also President Trump endorsing Brad Schimmel and telling his voters the 1.7 million. This is important. So we can't just elect President Trump and think the world's has changed and we saved everything. No, this is going to be a tough slog, and so we need to win these races. There's no reason to only turn out 800,000 votes for a crucial race. So. We need to turn out 1.3, 1.4, 1.5 million votes, and we ought to be able to do it.
Well, we're definitely supporting your man here, and luckily we have a good, strong reach throughout the state of Wisconsin. I don't know if other talk show hosts nationally are even talking about this, but we've been talking about it since last week. It's very important now. It's same in Pennsylvania, Senator. They have an elected Supreme Court. They have 7 members. And the Republicans don't pay attention to it. So what happened the last time around? They took 5 seats. The unions literally the public sector unions put these some of these justices in, added to the other justices. So with all this litigation involving, elections and so forth and so on, well, what do you think's going to happen if people don't get out and vote? So in Wisconsin, you got to get out and vote. You got to treat this like a presidential election, or they're going to steal 2 of your Republican seats. They may even do more damage, to your state representatives and so forth, because there's nothing else that can stop them, right, Senator?
Yeah, exactly. The left is brazen in terms of acquiring and using power. I mean, they have no problem. They'll sit back and say that the Wisconsin Republican legislators gerrymander districts, and they're outraged by it until they get power, and then they'll gerrymander the districts with the justices on the Supreme Court. Again, totally hypocritical. And the other thing, there's no absolutely unbiased way to draw district lines. There's not. But the best, I guess the least worst way is probably to have, 132 elected officials, in the state assembly, in the state senate, draw those district maps because people voted for them, as opposed to 4 justices on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. And that's what would happen, again, if Susan Crawford wins this race.
We've been gerrymandering districts since the beginning of this republic. The difference here is the courts have not been gerrymandering districts until the last 40 or 50 years. And now they're actually out of the closet gerrymandering for the party of their choice. Senator Ron Johnson, you're terrific. We want to thank you for everything you do. I need to bring you back more often. God bless you, my friend.
God bless you. Take care.
There he goes. Ron Johnson, I like that man. We'll be right back.
Yes, it's true that Mark Levin is the fastest growing radio show in America. The Mark Levin Show is on at 877-381-3811.
Whatever you do, ignore this Talkers magazine. Their list is a joke. More importantly, a new twist on this story involving Mike Waltz and the so-called leak. This just broke, literally, within the hour. The Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, a buddy of mine, he's in Hawaii. He's either getting on a plane or off a plane. And I want you to listen to this very, very carefully. You heard what Politico had to say. You're aware of The Atlantic, the story they ran with. Jeffrey Goldberg, who's a leftist, a partisan. Now listen to this. Go.
Can you share how your information about war plans against the Houthis in Yemen was shared with a journalist in The Atlantic? And were those details classified?
You're talking about a deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes time and time again, to include the hoaxes of Russia, or the fine people on both sides hoax, or suckers and losers hoax. So this is the guy that peddles in garbage. This is what he does. I would love to comment on the Houthi campaign because of the skill and courage of our troops. I've monitored it very closely from the beginning. And you see, we've been managing 4 years of deferred maintenance under the Trump administration. Our troops, our sailors were getting shot at as targets. Our ships couldn't sail through. And when they did shoot back, it was purely defensively or at shacks in Yemen. President Trump said, no more. We will reestablish deterrence. We will open freedom of navigation, and we will ultimately decimate the Houthis, which is exactly what we're doing as we speak from the beginning, overwhelmingly.
Why were those details shared on Signal, and how did you learn that a journalist was privy to the targets, the types of weapons used?
I've heard I was characterized. Nobody was texting war plans, and that's all I have to say about that.
Right,
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Wow. Nobody was texting war plans, Mr. Producer. And that's all he can say about it right now. So if nobody's texting war plans, how is that even a story, Rich? Because, as I understand it, what Jeffrey Goldberg is saying, that he was accidentally... Remember, this didn't make any sense. I said, it can't be an accident. Maybe somebody purposely did it. Well, it turns out maybe nobody did anything. If I'm reading Hegseth's last sentence that he stated, they did not text war plans. See, this was disinformation, potentially. The attack on Waltz is disinformation, potentially. This could be some really dark shadow inside operation, trying to take out Mike Waltz. Look, I could be wrong. I'm trying to read the tea leaves just as you are. But let's step back a second. We have this story in The Atlantic. It was odd that it would come out today by a left-wing guy who hates Trump and is a partisan Democrat, Jeffrey Goldberg. You heard, Pete, about the history of this guy, and there's even more. But that said, he says, look, somehow I wound up on the text list, the text chain, and I got the war plans. Which is odd, isn't it? Hegseth just said there, we didn't text any war plans. Isn't that what he said, Mr. Producer? Nobody was texting war plans. I'll just leave it at that. I guarantee you there's some investigation going on. I think they're trying to figure out the truth about what's taking place here. But notice how quickly people came out of the closet to try and take out Mike Waltz. I have a suspicion about who they are, or at least what corner of the ideological playing field they come from. But that's beside the point, too. So Politico writes this entire piece with 3 reporters. Everybody's off the record except the press secretary and the Speaker of the House, both of whom come to the defense of Mike Waltz. The people attacking Waltz on the inside, plus somebody on the outside, talks about effing Waltz. That sounds like somebody I think I know who that could be, but that's the way it is. Now we have a statement that you just heard. I'm going to play it one more time by the Secretary of Defense. That's how important this is. Because there can be some kind of ops operation going on among certain ideologues of the Hate America First crowd, of the isolationist crowd, or could be some kind of intel ops job, or could just all be BS. I don't know. But this is something I'm going to keep my eye on. So let's hear this again. But you have Atlantic Magazine involved, disreputable. Politico involved, disreputable. Everybody attacking Waltz is off the record, disreputable. They even go to people, or at least one, outside the chain, outrageous. And now we have the Secretary of Defense saying there was no text chain. Let's listen again. Go.
Can you share how your information about war plans against the Houthis in Yemen was shared with a journalist in the Atlantic? And were those details classified?
You're talking about a deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes time and time again, to include the hoaxes of Russia, or the fine people on both sides hoax, or suckers and losers hoax. So this is the guy that peddles in garbage. This is what he does. I would love to comment on the Houthi campaign because of the skill and courage of our troops. I've monitored it very closely from the beginning. And you see, we've been managing 4 years of deferred maintenance under the Trump administration. Our troops, our sailors were getting shot at as targets. Our ships couldn't sail through. And when they did shoot back, it was purely defensively or at shacks in Yemen. President Trump said, no more. We will reestablish deterrence. We will open freedom of navigation, and we will ultimately decimate the Houthis, which is exactly what we're doing as we speak from the beginning, overwhelmingly.
Why were those details shared on Signal, and how did you learn that a journalist was privy to the targets, the types of weapons used?
I've heard I was characterized. Nobody was texting war plans, and that's all I have to say about that.
Right,
Thank you.
I mean, that is a big deal. That is a big deal. So there's that. Another piece of breaking news for you. You know, I love this guy, this president, his people. They're just fantastic. Breaking, Margot Cleveland. She's a professor, by the way, and she writes at the Federalist. She's outstanding. The Trump administration tells judge in Alien Enemies Act, that's the Judge Bozoberg, it will provide him with no more information regarding the flights and is exercising the state's secret doctrine. The executive branch... Hold on, I don't have my glasses with me. The executive branch hereby notifies this court that no further information will be provided in response to the court's March 18 order based on the state secrets privilege and the concurrently filed declarations of the Secretary of State and Secretary of Homeland Security. This is a case about the president's plenary authority derived from Article 2 and the mandate of the electorate and reinforced by long-standing statutes to remove from the homeland designated terrorists participating in, give me a second here, a state-sponsored invasion of and predatory incursion into the United States. The court has all the facts it needs to address the compliance issues before it. Further intrusions on the executive branch would present dangerous and wholly unwarranted separation of powers harms with respect to diplomatic and national security concerns that the court lacks competence to address. Hell, it sounds like I wrote the damn thing. Accordingly, the state secrets privilege forecloses further demands for details excuse me, that have no place in this matter. And the government will address the court's order to show cause tomorrow by demonstrating that there is no basis for the suggestion of noncompliance with a binding order. Now, for the left, who's been wrong about everything legally, haven't they? Everything. Because they don't care. They really, ends justify the means. That's their bumper sticker. That's their fortune cookie. The president is teeing this thing up now big time. Separation of powers. That court has no authority, period. And that's all we're going to say about it. You got a problem with that, see us in the Supreme Court ultimately. That's what he just did. And my hat's off to this administration. All right, I want to see here, Mr. Producer. I want to do as you ask. There's another fantastic video. We'll play the audio when we return. But I've got to do something here, something I want to do. We'll be right back, but don't go away. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Apologize to the people on the phone and holding. We're not going to be able to get to you this evening. Just too much breaking news, I'm afraid. This is why Hour 3 is always so damn important. Things happen in Hour 3 all the time. Big things. Tammy Bruce today, you know, she's the State Department spokesperson, and she is fantastic. I salute to Tammy Bruce. I want you to listen to this. Go.
The Israelis have killed 2 more journalists, Hossam Shabbat of Al Jazeera Mubashir, Mohammed Mansour of Palestine. Today, that brings the number to 208. Each one was individually targeted. The IDF says they used...
You know, this is so outrageous. Look at these so-called journalists from Qatar and from Palestine, something or other. How many journalists, and there were many, participated in that October 7th slaughter of the Jews? But this guy sounds like he has a British accent or something. I don't know, but this guy's a punk. Go ahead.
Gathering and precise munitions. Shabbat killed in his car, Mansour in his house. The Committee to Protect Journalists has once again noted that the deliberate targeted killing of journalists is a war crime. Do you have any comment?
I would say that every single thing that's happening is a result of Hamas and its choices to drag that region down into a level of suffering that has been excruciating and has caused innumerable deaths. And, of course, their reaction on October 7th when there was a ceasefire and people were living in some relative peace, they decided to break that with an atrocity that was just certainly the most Jews killed in a single framework than during the Holocaust. And we also, I can tell you, we stand by Israel and its needs as it defends itself through this period of time, as we also work with them so that they don't need to defend themselves from the barbarity of an entity that has destroyed lives for generations and continues to. So for everyone who has, so many people who do so many jobs and who've lived different lives, and the children and the babies who didn't have a chance to seek their fortunes or their life dreams because of the barbarity of certain people who think that murder is the only way to move through life.
Is it a war crime?
And I will tell. I'm certainly. You know, I'm not going to stand here and declare what's a war crime and what isn't. But what we do know is a crime is the mass slaughter of any individuals. Certainly, the targeting of people simply because of who they are. That Jew hatred is a signal regarding the barbarity and the nature of who it is you're dealing with. The world knows that if you don't stop it and don't confront it as it bears its ugly face, it will not stop. And that is part of what this world now has decided. Let me answer the journalist.
First of all, Tammy, fantastic. The guy's ignoring everywhere because he's a partisan. There are no journalists in Qatar. Are you kidding me? Qatar, you bring up Qatar, you don't bring up the fact that they're a center, they're a beehive of terrorism and funding terrorism and terrorist supporters in our own country, number one. Number two, we don't know a damn thing about these so-called journalists. And you say over 200 of them have been killed. You know what that tells me, Mr. Producer? 200 of them are in the wrong place. Why would they be in the middle of a war zone? Because they're participants, that's why. It's like the phony data that comes out about how many people have been killed in the Gaza Strip. One expert after another who's serious, explaining that the numbers coming from Hamas are impossible. So where does this clown get his numbers? Doesn't matter. But I thought you'd want to hear our friend Tammy. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a full program. Thanks for being there. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, our truckers, the men and women in Ukraine, the men and women in Israel, And you, the American people, thank God for you. And I'll see you tomorrow. God bless.